Not all plural families don't show affection. This was something that they decided before I even came in the family to not show affection in front of each other, and I always saw it as a mistake.
Hope chest.
I think she's here. Yep, I heard the door.
Let's try and get these in there. I think this is how this goes.
We've been moving along at a decent pace, getting this done. But now Ari's home, we can hear her, and it's like a NASCAR pit stop. I feel like I've been slapped by polygamy.
Oh.
It's hard not to be bitter about the fact that I bought off on it and did it. I think 5 years from now, I literally will see other polygamists, maybe even people I knew, and I will shudder for them.
The sound of packing tape ripping across cardboard still echoed in the family's memory when a new noise filled the air, a crisp envelope sliding across a polished countertop in Robyn's Flagstaff kitchen. It wasn't a bill for utilities or a birthday card from a distant cousin. No. Insiders whisper it was an invoice, and when the flap peeled open, the number staring back allegedly read $40,000. Not for a car, not for a wedding, but for the next phase of a home remodel. For anyone else, it might have been just another home improvement moment. But for Kody and Robyn Brown, fresh from the long public unraveling of plural marriage and the recent sale of Coyote Pass, it was a flashpoint. The dust had barely settled on that land deal, a symbolic end to the dream they once promised would unite the whole family, and here they were, faced with another major decision about what to build and when. People close to the family say the remodel had been in discussion for months, a mix of practical updates and cosmetic touches to make the house feel like a true forever home for Robyn and the kids she is raising with Kody. But the timing, as one insider put it, couldn't have been touchier. With Janelle, Christine, and Mary now fully out of the shared household picture, the financial and emotional focus is firmly on this one home, and that makes every dollar, every choice, and every perceived indulgence stand out like it's under a spotlight. What struck some was the emotional undercurrent. Sources claim Kody has been more sensitive than ever about how his decisions look from the outside. In the era of plural marriage, spending could be explained as communal needs. Now it's just him and Robyn, and that shift changes the optics completely. A $40,000 invoice for cabinetry upgrades or a security system might sound sensible in private, but the moment it's whispered into the public sphere, it risks becoming a symbol of everything outsiders think they know about him. And then there's Janelle, no longer sharing a roof or budget with Kody, but still, in the eyes of fans, the voice of steady pragmatism. Word is, when she caught wind of the remodel figure, she didn't yell, didn't even frown. She simply offered one short question that those close to her say is a mantra in her own life. Is this a need or a want? And that was enough to hang in the air like a challenge no one wanted to answer right away. Because as it turns out, that invoice was just the starting point. Rumor has it the project list might already be stretching at the seams, and some believe the most controversial upgrade hasn't even begun yet. If you believe the whispers coming out of Flagstaff, the remodel isn't a gut and rebuild extravaganza. It's more like a carefully plotted refresh, but one that still racks up a bill that would make most people stop mid-sentence. Sources close to the situation allege the biggest ticket item is in the kitchen, where cabinetry is set to be refinished in a warm, custom stain, paired with upgraded hardware that gives the whole space a sleeker, more modern look. Not gold-plated, not marble imported from Europe, but far from the builder-grade finishes the home came with when Robyn first moved in. Those same sources say there's also talk of swapping out the countertops for a lighter quartz to brighten the room, a choice that's undeniably aesthetic, even if it's billed as more durable for a big family. Then there's the flooring. Allegedly, high-traffic areas like the entryway, living room, and family room are set to get new luxury vinyl plank in a weathered oak tone. On paper, it's a sensible upgrade, durable, water-resistant, and easier to clean with kids in the house, but paired with other upgrades, it starts to look like a while-we're-at-it snowball effect, which is how remodels quietly double in price before anyone realizes what happened. One insider even hinted there's a plan to replace the carpet in the kids' bedrooms, not because it's worn through, but because it doesn't match the new vibe. A smaller but more eyebrow-raising line item, according to speculation online, is a set of custom built-ins for what's currently a multi-purpose space. Depending on who you ask, it's either a much-needed storage solution for homeschooling materials and family keepsakes, or it's an indulgence meant to showcase decor more than function. A security upgrade is also rumored to be in the works, including smart locks and an expanded camera system. That's one of those changes most viewers would agree falls under needs, especially in a household that's had its share of public attention. And then there's the kids' bathroom refresh. Allegedly, new tile, updated fixtures, and better storage will make it more usable for the younger children. Practical? Absolutely. But it's the combination kitchen, flooring, bathrooms, custom features that pushes the total to that $40,000 mark, and possibly beyond. And in a family where timing is everything, some see it as more about making the home feel new for this new chapter than addressing urgent repairs. Yet, even with that breakdown, the real friction isn't in the list of projects, it's in the story people attach to them. And how, for Janelle, that story keeps circling back to one question she's not letting go. Because just when it seemed like the invoice explained everything, one single upgrade surfaced in conversation that changed the tone entirely. And that's when the needs versus wants debate turned into something much sharper. For anyone who's followed the Browns for more than a season, Janelle's voice has always been the steady hum under all the noise, a calm counterbalance to the stormier personalities around her. She's the one who could talk about budgets without turning it into a fight, who could stretch a dollar until it practically begged for mercy, and who always seemed to have a plan for the long game. And now, living entirely outside of Kody's household, that practicality has taken on a new kind of authority. She's not weighing in as someone sharing expenses or debating how communal funds should be spent. She's speaking from the clean distance of her own separate life, and that makes her perspective even harder to dismiss. Friends say Janelle's needs versus wants philosophy didn't just appear overnight, it's been a through line in her life, especially in the leaner years when raising kids meant choosing between upgrading a car or keeping the emergency fund intact, between replacing worn furniture or saving for school costs. She's seen the cycle of little extras balloon into budget headaches, and she's learned to ask herself that simple question before signing off on anything. For her, it's not about deprivation, it's about clarity. And it's that clarity that makes her alleged comment about the remodel land with so much sting. Even though she no longer lives under the same roof, or even in the same city, her words cut right into the core of what Kody and Robyn are trying to do. She doesn't have to criticize the remodel outright. All she has to do is remind everyone that timing and intention matter as much as the actual cost. The moment she draws that line between what's essential and what's simply nice to have, it reframes the entire conversation. Kody, by contrast, is in a position where every choice feels scrutinized. In his mind, according to insiders, a remodel isn't some vanity project, it's an investment in the home, where his marriage, his remaining children, and his future all reside. And yet, Janelle's question still hangs there. An unspoken challenge. Is this truly necessary now? Or is it about making a statement? That's the part Kody can't control. The fact that people, especially those who once knew him best, will interpret his actions through their own filter. It's why fans say the exchange between Kody and Janelle, brief as it may have been, is one of the season's most telling moments. It's not just about floors, cabinets, or custom shelves, it's about the shift in power and perspective. Janelle is no longer asking permission to weigh in. She's simply observing from a distance, and in doing so, she might be shaping the narrative more than either Kody or Robyn realize. And if you believe the whispers, that narrative took a sharp turn the moment a certain figure from the past got wind of the remodel and had a few thoughts of their own. Kody has never been shy about taking up space, physically, emotionally, or on camera. But ever since the plural marriage dissolved into a single monogamous union with Robyn, that space feels different. In the old days, a big expense could be framed as part of a communal vision, justified as something that benefited all the wives and children. Now, every dollar he spends sits under a different kind of microscope, because it serves one household and one wife. That's not inherently wrong, but it changes the math in the court of public opinion. Sources close to the family say Kody is deeply aware of how he's perceived these days. The sale of Coyote Pass, finalized earlier this year, was supposed to close one chapter and silence the what about the land questions that have dogged him for years. Instead, the timing of this remodel, right on the heels of that sale, has fueled a new round of speculation. Some fans see it as a symbol. The dream of building a shared future for all has been replaced by the reality of improving just one home for one wife. From Kody's point of view, according to those same sources, the remodel is about longevity and security. This is the home where he's raising the youngest of his children, the place where holidays are hosted, where milestones will happen. He allegedly believes that making improvements now, upgrading the flooring before it wears thin, installing better locks, fixing what's outdated, will save headaches and money down the road. But that practical mindset clashes with the optics problem. The truth is, many viewers are still adjusting to this new version of the Browns. The sight of Kody pouring resources into Robyn's home, while his relationships with the other wives remain distant, hits an emotional nerve. Even if Janelle's words about needs versus wants weren't meant as a jab, they play into a long-running narrative about perceived favoritism and uneven investment. And because the family's financial history has played out so publicly, no one watching can separate the dollar signs from the family dynamics. What complicates things further is that Kody reportedly feels cornered. He's tired of defending himself over expenses he sees as reasonable. He doesn't want to hear comparisons to the past, and he certainly doesn't want to justify upgrades in his own home to people who no longer live there. But perception has a way of becoming reality. And right now, the reality many fans see is a man funneling resources into one branch of a once sprawling family tree. And if the whispers are true, the pressure of that perception boiled over during a production day, sparking a behind-the-scenes exchange that never made it into the official footage, but left everyone in the room with the same thought. This conversation is far from over. Longtime viewers know that nothing on Sister Wives happens in a vacuum. Even the most mundane moments, a grocery run, a family game night, can become lightning rods once the cameras are rolling. So it's no surprise that whispers have already started about whether this remodel is just home maintenance or a perfectly timed storyline. According to some fans, the way this whole thing has unfolded feels almost too neat. A big-ticket project conveniently landing just after the emotional high of selling Coyote Pass and just before the next block of filming. Now, it's important to be clear, there's no official confirmation that the remodel was planned for television, but some insiders speculate that production might have nudged it forward or emphasized certain aspects to fit the season's arc. The show has always thrived on contrasts: old dreams versus new realities, communal living versus separate lives, stability versus upheaval. A remodel in Kody and Robyn's home offers a rich backdrop for all of that, especially when paired with Janelle's pointed needs versus wants commentary. The irony is that even if production didn't shape the timing, the optics remain the same. Once viewers see it on screen, it becomes part of the narrative whether it was scripted or not. Robyn choosing tile samples in one scene, Kody haggling with a contractor in another. These visuals tell their own story, one that can be edited to highlight tension, compromise, or stubbornness, depending on what the episode needs. And when you weave in confessionals from Janelle or the other ex-wives reacting to the news, the remodel shifts from a personal project to a shared talking point for the entire family and the audience. There's also the matter of what a remodel represents symbolically. In a post-plural marriage world, Kody and Robyn's house isn't just a home, it's the fortress, the safe zone, the one place where their family unit feels complete. Viewers have seen Robyn emotional about losing connections with the other wives and children. Investing in the house might be her way of shoring up what remains. Whether that's a need or a want depends on who you ask, and that's precisely why it makes such potent television. But producers can only follow so much. What's harder to capture and harder to control is the way this storyline is landing outside of that Flagstaff home. Rumor has it, not everyone in the extended family is taking it as lightly as Robyn and Kody might hope. In fact, one quiet exchange during a group conversation allegedly brought the tension to a boil, and it wasn't about cabinets or flooring at all. It was about something far more personal. It wasn't a family dinner like in the old days, those evenings where every wife squeezed around a crowded table and the conversation zigzagged from groceries to kids' schedules to who was hosting the next holiday. This time, the gathering was smaller, quieter, and, according to sources, a little too polite at the start. Kody and Robyn were at one end, papers and estimates laid out in neat stacks. On a laptop screen, Janelle's face appeared via video call, her expression as unreadable as ever. No Christine, no Mary, just the three of them and the faint hum of a ceiling fan filling the pauses. Robyn, insiders whisper, began with her reasoning. The remodel, she explained, wasn't about luxury, but about making the home more functional for the kids, especially as they got older. She talked about security upgrades, more durable flooring, and fixing things before they became problems. She didn't once say wants, but she didn't have to. Everyone knew that was the word hanging over the conversation. Kody, for his part, tried to back her up. He allegedly pointed out that after the sale of Coyote Pass, their household had a chance to stabilize, and part of that meant making sure the home they had was one they could stay in for years. To him, this was just smart planning. He even reminded Janelle that she'd once said it was better to fix small issues early than let them snowball into big expenses. But Janelle didn't flinch. Calmly, she nodded, acknowledging that logic before asking the question again. Slowly this time, is this a need or a want? It wasn't accusatory, but it was deliberate, and the silence that followed was heavier than anything Robyn or Kody could fill with more talking. That's when the conversation allegedly tipped. Instead of debating cabinets or carpet, the focus shifted to something deeper. What these choices signaled to the rest of the family. Janelle suggested that from the outside, a remodel this soon after the land sale might look like celebrating one branch of the family, while others were still figuring out their next steps. She stressed it wasn't about jealousy, it was about perception, and how quickly narratives can form when you've spent years in the public eye. Kody, according to someone who was there, stiffened. He said he was tired of being told how things look, and that he'd earned the right to make decisions for his household without defending them every time. Robyn stayed quiet, her hands clasped, but her eyes darted toward the camera like she wanted to interject. And that's when Janelle, still composed, delivered a final line that would stick in everyone's mind long after the call ended. It's not the spending, Kody. It's the message. Little did they know that single sentence was about to ripple far beyond their private conversation, because once fans got wind of it, the debate would explode in ways none of them expected. It didn't take long for that line, "It's not the spending, it's the message," to leak into the public sphere. A vague post here, a paraphrased quote there, and suddenly the fan conversations were humming. Within days, the phrase needs versus wants was everywhere, splashed across sister wives discussion boards, fan podcasts, and Facebook groups that have been dissecting this family's choices for more than a decade. And unlike the more sensational hashtags that flame out fast, this one struck a nerve, especially with viewers in their 40s, 50s, and beyond, who have lived through their own battles of budgeting and prioritizing. In thread after thread, fans weren't arguing over whether Robyn's remodel choices were pretty. They were weighing in on the principle of the thing. One commenter described putting off a kitchen update for 5 years to pay for a child's college tuition. Another admitted splurging on hardwood floors, only after saving for them in a separate account for 2 years. The underlying tone was the same. In real life, most people have to choose between now and later, and the Browns' new dynamic is forcing that choice into the spotlight. Some viewers even defended Robyn, pointing out that she's raising young kids in a home that needs to be both functional and secure. If it's where they're going to live long term, why not make it right now, was a common sentiment. But even those sympathetic voices often circled back to the timing. Just months after closing the book on Coyote Pass, launching into a $40,000 remodel, even one framed as necessary, reads differently when the audience is already sensitive to the perception of favoritism. It helped, too, that the phrase needs versus wants is short, snappy, and endlessly adaptable. Fans began using it like shorthand in other discussions. Robyn's decor choices? Needs versus wants? Kody's truck? Needs versus wants? Even the kids' holiday wish lists got the treatment in jest. The more it circulated, the more it stopped being just Janelle's question and started becoming a lens for the whole show. And while the online conversation was mostly civil, there was no denying that it put Kody in an awkward position. Every time he appeared in a scene discussing the remodel, the subtext was already baked in. Even before he said a word, viewers were watching with that question in mind, silently judging each decision through their own lived experience. Which is exactly why, according to insiders, Kody became more guarded in production meetings. He didn't want to give the audience more fuel. But ironically, the moment he tried to pull back, a detail from the project's paper trail allegedly leaked, and it was the kind of number that gets people talking all over again. If there's one thing that never stays buried for long in the world of sister wives, it's a receipt. The Browns have been living under the microscope for so many years now that even the faintest whisper of a paper trail gets the fandom leaning in. And according to multiple sources close to production, that's exactly what happened once talk of the remodel broke out beyond the immediate household. No one's claiming to have seen the full binder of invoices, but insiders allege that certain figures, shared selectively and without full context, started making the rounds in conversations between crew members, family friends, and yes, eventually, online chatterboxes. On its own, a contractor's retainer isn't scandalous. In fact, one person familiar with home projects in Flagstaff says it's normal to put down a sizable deposit months in advance, especially in a market where skilled labor books up fast. But in this case, rumor has it that the retainer for the remodel was placed while the Coyote Pass sale was still pending, meaning before the check from that chapter had even cleared. That detail doesn't prove anything shady. Plenty of homeowners plan big projects ahead of a sale if they expect the money to be there, but for critics already sensitive to the optics, it was enough to add a little extra spice to the conversation. Then came the whispers about extras being tacked on. Allegedly, the initial $40,000 projection began to stretch as soon as choices were finalized. Upgraded cabinet hardware cost more than expected. The flooring quote ticked up when they opted for a higher grade underlayment. Even the kids' bathroom refresh, reportedly meant to be a budget-conscious facelift, grew more expensive when a particular tile pattern caught Robyn's eye. Again, none of this is unusual in the world of remodeling. Anyone who's ever renovated knows how quickly a well-meaning budget can creep. But when you're Kody Brown and every number gets filtered through a decade of perceived favoritism, those small bumps feel a lot bigger in the court of public opinion. The most talked about rumor, however, wasn't about materials at all. It was about payment timing. Some claim that a portion of the work was prepaid in full for scheduling purposes, creating the impression of a large cash outlay right after the Coyote Pass sale. Without official confirmation, it's impossible to know if that's true or if it was simply a retainer reflected in a lump sum. Still, the perception stuck, especially among fans who follow the Browns' property records like it's a second hobby. What made this paper trail talk particularly potent was how it intersected with the show's narrative. Viewers had just watched Kody speak on camera about wanting to rebuild stability, about putting family security first. So when whispers of higher than expected totals hit social media, they weren't seen in a vacuum. They were measured against those very words. Was this stability? Or was it a want disguised as a need? That question echoed louder than any single invoice could. And if insiders are to be believed, the moment Kody caught wind of these circulating figures, his mood changed. He allegedly became more terse in production meetings, wary of giving away details that could be taken out of context. But the irony, of course, is that the less he shared, the more curious people became. It's a dynamic this family knows all too well. In the absence of a clear story, the audience will write its own. That audience speculation reached a fever pitch when a separate, unrelated update about the remodel surfaced, one that had nothing to do with money, but everything to do with emotion. And it's that part, not the dollars, that would hit the family in a place even more sensitive than their wallets. For Kody, pride has always been a double-edged sword. It's what drove him to hold a sprawling family together for decades, even when the cracks were showing. And it's also what makes criticism, especially public criticism, cut so deep. Sources close to the family say that when the remodel talk shifted from cabinets and flooring to questions about timing, priorities, and message, it stopped feeling like a home project and started feeling like a referendum on his character. To him, this wasn't just about wood stain or tile, it was about his right to shape his life as he sees fit, without asking permission from people who no longer share his household. But when that perception is questioned by someone like Janelle, whose opinion he knows the audience trusts, the blow lands harder. Robyn, meanwhile, has her own weight to carry. She spent years defending herself against accusations that she receives special treatment or drains resources, even in seasons when the evidence was circumstantial at best. Insiders whisper that this remodel was meant to be a step toward normalcy, a way to invest in the home she plans to raise her children in, to make it feel settled after so many years of flux. But instead of calming the waters, the project seems to have churned them up again. And that, say those close to her, has been exhausting. For Robyn, the criticism isn't just about spending, it's about being cast in a role she's never been able to shake, no matter what she says or does. Then there's Janelle, who appears at least outwardly unshaken. She's been through enough in her own life to know when to pick a battle. And this wasn't one she intended to escalate. Her needs versus wants line wasn't delivered with fire or contempt. It was delivered like a weather report, calm, factual, almost inevitable. And that's what gives it so much power. Because she's not living in Kody's house, not sharing his finances, and not wrapped up in the day-to-day of his marriage, her words come without the baggage of personal interest. She can say her piece and step back, letting others wrestle with the implications. What viewers picked up on was the contrast. Kody visibly agitated, leaning into self-defense, Robyn, quiet but visibly stung, Janelle, composed and firm, unwilling to blur her boundaries. For an audience that has watched this family's emotional weather patterns for over a decade, it felt like a snapshot of where everyone stands in this new post-plural reality. Kody and Robyn, together but under pressure. Janelle, separate but still a moral anchor in the eyes of many fans. And in the editing room, according to whispers, the producers knew they had gold. That dynamic, pride, exhaustion, composure, tells a bigger story than any invoice or blueprint ever could. Which is why the episode's final beats didn't dwell on receipts or line items, but on that closing moment when Janelle delivered one last measured statement, the kind that can't be answered in the moment, and that lingers long after the cameras stop. Because as much as the remodel started as a question of wood and tile, it ended as something else entirely, a question of legacy, of what message the Browns will leave behind in this new era. And that question still hung in the air as the season's cameras prepared to roll one last time. By the time the dust settled, figuratively, not from the construction, the remodel had become something far bigger than a home improvement project. It was a mirror, reflecting exactly where this family stands now. Kody and Robyn in their Flagstaff home making decisions as a monogamous couple, carving out a vision for their future. Janelle living her own life, untethered from Kody's day-to-day but still woven into the family's history in a way that gives her perspective real weight. And Christine and Mary, absent from the conversation entirely, yet still part of the bigger picture in the minds of fans who have watched all their journeys unfold. In the end, there was no dramatic walkout, no shouting match that left cabinets half-finished or floors left bare. The remodel, sources say, moved forward, though whether the final total stayed at $40,000 or crept a little higher remains a matter of speculation. What is certain is that the project will forever carry the stamp of that one simple question: is this a need or a want? A question that has outlived the argument itself, because it taps into something every person has faced, balancing what feels right with what makes sense. For Kody, the answer may never be straightforward. Pride, perception, and the public eye have a way of blurring the lines. For Robyn, the project was about security and comfort for her children, a point she will stand by regardless of what fans say. And for Janelle, it was about staying true to her own compass, even if it meant raising an eyebrow from a distance. And that's what makes this moment resonate. It isn't just about one remodel. It's about the legacy of choices and how, in the end, those choices are remembered. Viewers aren't debating backsplash colors or flooring textures. They're talking about values, priorities, and the messages we send without even realizing it. So now it's your turn to weigh in. Do you think Kody and Robyn were right to move ahead with the remodel when they did, focusing on their household's needs and comfort? Or do you believe Janelle's needs versus wants philosophy should have taken precedence in the timing and scope? If you enjoyed peeling back the layers of this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. The next video on your screen is waiting, and trust me, you won't want to miss it.